I was on a client call when my manager looked straight into the camera and said, "I apologize for the confusion. We made a mistake bringing him on. 9 people on that video call. Dead silence. Not the kind where someone's about to speak. The kind where everyone is waiting for someone else to figure out what just happened." My presentation was still on the shared screen. 6 weeks of work. A full restructuring strategy for Northbridge Capital's Southeast Asian expansion. Market entry sequencing, regulatory risk mapping, partnership frameworks. And in one sentence, Norbert Cassidy had just buried it in front of the client. Loretta Finch, Northbridge's chief strategy officer, stared at her camera. "Could you clarify what you mean by that, Norbert?" He cleared his throat. "Roy's approach has been unconventional. His projections deviate from what Northbridge has historically responded to. I should have reviewed them more carefully before this call." Then he shared his screen. A completely different strategy. Frameworks I had never seen, never approved, never written. My name still on the title slide. I didn't say a word for the rest of that call. When it ended, I closed my laptop and sat in my home office in the dark for a while. My name is Roy Dunbar. I'm 57. I've spent 29 years in business strategy consulting, mostly turnaround work. Companies that were bleeding out, needing someone to find where the damage was and stop it before it became permanent. I'm not the kind of consultant who does big presentations with animations. I do work that holds up when someone kicks the tires hard. Hargrove Advisory Group reached out to me 8 months before that call. Their pitch was straightforward. "We need someone who's actually fixed things, not just theorized about it." I took the role as senior strategy consultant, reporting to Norbert Cassidy, who ran the strategy division. Norbert was 36. His father, Glenn Cassidy, was one of Hargrove's founding partners. That explained a lot. Norbert dressed well, spoke confidently, and ran meetings like someone who had spent his whole career in rooms where no one questioned him. First week, he was warm. "Your track record precedes you, Roy." Firm handshake. Direct eye contact. By week 3, the small adjustments started. Every document I submitted came back with what he called refinements, not corrections. Refinements, I'd write something specific and actionable. Reduce vendor contracts by consolidating to 3 primary suppliers. Projected savings of 2.3 million annually. It would come back as, consider evaluating vendor relationships with an eye toward long-term optimization. I flagged it the first time. He brushed it off. Clients here respond better to collaborative language, less directive. I let it go and watched. Month 2. I submitted an entry strategy for a regional bank looking to expand operations into 3 new markets. My approach centered on a phased rollout with hard go, no-go checkpoints tied to regulatory milestones. Lower upfront cost, much lower risk of getting stuck with sunk capital if a market didn't open on schedule. When I saw the final version that went to the client, I barely recognized it. My name was on the cover. The strategy was a standard aggressive expansion plan that ignored every regulatory risk I had mapped. I asked Norbert about it directly. He said, "The client wanted momentum, Roy. They didn't want to feel like we were hedging before we even started." 3 months later, that client ran into exactly the regulatory problems I had flagged. Norbert's response in our team meeting, "Roy's approach didn't account for the variables adequately. We'll need to revise." That was the moment I understood what was happening, and that night I started building my parallel system. Every document I submitted to Norbert from that point forward, I saved 2 versions. The original, time-stamped, backed up to a personal encrypted drive. And the version I handed him, I kept a log with dates, file names, and a 1-line note on what had been changed. 29 years in this business had taught me one thing above everything else. Don't move until you can finish it in a single step. So I didn't move, I collected. Floyd Hensley sat 2 doors down from me. 51 years old, senior analyst, 14 years at Hargrove. He'd watched managers rotate through that division for over a decade. About 3 months into my time there, he stopped by my office, closed the door, and sat down without being asked. "You know what he's doing?" he said. It wasn't a question. "I have a good idea," I said. Floyd nodded once. "Keep your receipts." Then he got up and left. I tried HR once. Scheduled the meeting myself. Showed up with printed documentation. Norbert walked in 12 minutes into the conversation. He sat down and started talking about communication challenges and adjustment periods. Like I was a new hire struggling to find my footing. I found out afterward that HR reported directly into Glenn Cassidy's division. Every complaint filed in that office went straight to Norbert's father. So I stopped filing and kept building. By month 6, the pattern had played out across 4 separate client accounts. My strategies went in. Norbert's version went out with my name still attached. When results came in weak, the name on the document took the hit. Always Roy, always my projections. Always my approach. Month 8, Norbert called me into his office and slid a folder across his desk. The Northbridge expansion isn't landing. Your regional entry sequence is the problem. I opened the folder, a strategy I had never written, with my name on the cover page. That's not what I submitted, I said. Your name's on it because you put it there. His expression didn't change. That's a serious accusation. Do you have proof? I didn't answer. We both sat with that for a moment. The team has concerns about your performance, he said. Clients are asking questions. I'd think carefully about where you stand here. I thanked him and went back to my desk. 2 weeks later, the Northbridge call happened. After the call ended, I sat in my home office for a long time, not panicking, just thinking. My phone buzzed. Floyd, that was bad. You okay? I typed back, yeah, I'll handle it. About an hour later, he called. Roy, Norbert's already sending emails to the executive team. Something about personnel decisions this week. I think he's planning to move before you can. There it was. He wasn't going to wait. He was going to fire me before I had a chance to do anything. And then the story would be simple. Underperforming consultant let go after 8 months. My name already attached to 4 failed strategies. Clean exit for him. I opened my laptop, pulled up the email thread I had been sitting on for 3 months. The night I found it came back to me clearly. I had stayed late at the office trying to reconstruct a deliverable Norbert had gutted beyond recognition. While searching the shared drive for an earlier file version, I found a PDF saved in the wrong folder. It was an email thread between Norbert and Beverly Strom, our financial controller. Beverly had written, "These altered projections create serious liability exposure. Modifying his work while keeping his signature is not defensible if a client escalates." Norbert's response, "He has too much tenure to push back hard without documentation. Keep his name on everything. If anything blows up with a client, we have our scapegoat." I had read it twice, slowly. Then I downloaded a local copy to my personal drive, closed the file, and drove home. That was 3 months ago. I had been waiting for the right moment. And Floyd's call told me the moment had arrived. I opened my email. I added the addresses for Earl Whitfield, Hargrove's CEO, and Nadine Caldwell, the COO. Then I added one more, Loretta Finch at Northbridge Capital. The same woman who had sat in silence on that call 2 hours earlier while Norbert apologized for hiring me. I attached the original email thread, the PDF I had downloaded from the shared drive. Then I attached 6 months of parallel documentation, original strategies alongside Norbert's altered versions, time-stamped and labeled. Every client, every revision. Side by side, I hit forward. Then I closed my laptop and went to bed. At 3:22 in the morning, my phone lit up the ceiling. I read the subject line without picking up the phone. Emergency Executive Meeting, 8 a.m. Conference Room A, signed by Nadine Caldwell. One line below the header, "Your presence is required. This matter needs immediate attention." I got up, showered, and put on the same suit I wore to my Hargrove interview. If things were going sideways, I was going to at least look like someone who belonged in the room. The office was quiet when I arrived at 7045. No one at the front desk, yet lights still half-dimmed in the hallways through the glass wall of Conference Room A. I could see 5 people already seated. Earl Whitfield, Nadine Caldwell, 2 board members I recognized from the company directory, and Beverly Strom. Norbert was not there. I pushed the door open. Earl looked up. "Roy, sit down." He gestured to the one empty chair. "How are you this morning?" he asked. "I'm present," I said. A brief expression crossed his face. Not quite a smile. "Fair enough." He slid a thick stack of papers across the table toward me. "We've been working since about 3:30 this morning. These are side-by-side comparisons of your original documents and the versions that went to clients." I looked down. 8 months of altered work laid out in 2 clean columns, my language on the left, Norbert's version on the right. It was worse seeing it all at once than it had been living through it, one document at a time. Nadine leaned forward. "How long has this been happening?" "Since month 2, I said. Earl's jaw tightened slightly. "Why didn't you come to us sooner?" "I went to HR twice." Norbert showed up both times within 15 minutes. I found out later that HR reports directly into Glenn Cassidy's division. Every complaint I filed went to Norbert's father. Nadine and Earl exchanged a look across the table. Beverly Strom spoke up. Her voice was steady, but her hands were flat on the table in front of her, very deliberate. "I want to say on the record that I raised concerns about this arrangement in writing. I flagged the liability risk directly. I was told the division's internal review process was handling it." She paused. Clearly it was not. Earl nodded once, then looked back at me. "Loretta Finch called me at 4 a.m. She had already forwarded your email to Northbridge's entire leadership team. By the time I got to the office, they had pulled every Hargrove presentation from the past 8 months. He tapped the stack of papers. 3 other clients contacted us before 7 this morning asking for strategy reviews. The room was quiet for a moment. Where is Norbert now? I asked. That's being handled, Nadine said. Her tone didn't invite follow-up questions. For the next 2 hours, I walked them through everything, every document. Every client meeting where the strategy I had submitted was not the one presented. Every instance where my name took the blame for results driven by decisions I had never made. Beverly cross-referenced my account with financial records she had been tracking separately for months. The numbers lined up exactly. At 10:15, my phone buzzed on the table. Floyd, Norbert just walked out with security. Conference room is locked. What is going on? I turned my phone face down and kept talking. When the meeting wrapped up, Earl asked everyone else to step out. He waited until the door closed, then leaned back in his chair and looked at me directly. Roy, I owe you an apology. We built this company on the idea that talent gets rewarded on its merits. What happened to you is the opposite of that, and it happened on our watch, he paused. We'd like you to take the rest of this week off, paid. When you come back Monday, we want to talk about a new role, leading the strategy division. Your structure, your approach, full authority over how the team operates. I didn't say yes immediately. 209 years in this industry had taught me that offers made in the middle of a crisis don't always look the same once the dust settles. I need a day to think about it, I said. He nodded. I understand. Trust takes time. We have work to do there. As I gathered my things to leave, Nadine appeared at the door. One more thing. Loretta Finch has requested a separate meeting with you. No other Hargrove representatives, just you. I must have shown something on my face because she added, it's not what you think. Her words were, we want to see the real strategy, not the version we were given. I drove home and sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee that went cold while I thought through what had just happened. My phone ran through 22 missed calls and 31 text messages, most from colleagues who had no idea what was going on and were trying to piece it together from hallway rumors. Floyd had sent 6 messages in a row, each one more urgent than the last. I called him back. Roy. He picked up on the first ring. People are saying you either got fired or got promoted, and nobody can figure out which. HR is interviewing everyone on the floor. Norbert's office is locked. What happened? I'll explain when I'm back Monday, I said. Are people doing okay over there? Honestly, the energy is different, like when a storm passes and the air changes. He paused. Alvin Greer is telling people you went rogue and tanked the division, but nobody's really listening to him. Alvin Greer, senior strategist, 44 years old, and Norbert's closest ally on the team. He had spent 8 months backing up everything Norbert said in meetings and staying conspicuously quiet. Every time my work got reassigned without explanation. I filed that information away and said goodbye to Floyd. The weekend was quieter than I expected. I spent Saturday going through my documentation one more time, not because I needed to, but because the habit was hard to break. Everything was in order, time-stamped, cross-referenced, organized by client and date. 8 months of parallel files that told a very clean story. Sunday afternoon, a courier delivered a letter from a law firm representing Norbert Cassidy, wrongful termination, defamation, theft of intellectual property, claiming I had misappropriated his strategic frameworks and presented them as my own. I read it twice, then I called Nadine. I received something today, I said, and read her the key claims. She was quiet for a moment. Bring it in Monday. Legal has been expecting something like this. Then she added, Roy, how much documentation do you have? 8 months. Every original file, every altered version, every email I saved, all of it time-stamped. Another pause, then I wouldn't lose sleep over this. I didn't. Not much anyway. Monday morning, I walked back into Hargrove for the first time since the emergency meeting. The difference was immediate and a little unsettling. People who had avoided eye contact for months were suddenly warm. Colleagues who had excluded me from meeting invitations were stopping by to say they were glad I was still there. I understood why, but it sat awkwardly. The same people who had watched what was happening and said nothing were now acting like we were on the same team the whole time. I accepted the division head role that afternoon in a meeting with Earl and Nadine. We agreed on a 90-day transition plan with clear benchmarks. Before I left that meeting, I told them directly. The first structural change I was making was a mandatory 2-reviewer process on every client deliverable before it left the building. No single point of control over any document. Earl agreed without hesitation. 2 days later, Nadine stopped by my new office. It was Norbert's old space, same view, different feeling. Legal update, she said, setting a folder on my desk. Norbert's attorney contacted us this morning. They're withdrawing the suit. She sat down across from me. Apparently, once our legal team sent over your documentation, his attorney advised him that proceeding would cause significantly more damage to his reputation than it would to yours. I opened the folder, scanned the withdrawal letter, and set it back down. There's something else, Nadine said. We've confirmed Norbert accepted a position at Westward Consulting. He starts there next Monday. She watched my reaction. They handle 3 of the accounts we've been targeting for new business. I already knew what that meant. Norbert at a competing firm, with knowledge of our client relationships and our internal processes, was not a comfortable situation. But I had learned over 29 years that the worst thing you can do when someone is about to make a move against you is react before they do. Let me know when he makes contact with any of our clients, I said. Nadine nodded. We'll be watching. It didn't take long. 5 days after Norbert started at Westward, Floyd forwarded me an email thread. One of our junior analysts had a contact at Westward who had passed along a screenshot of an internal message. Norbert had been telling Westward's business development team that Hargrove was structurally unstable, that my promotion was a liability management move rather than a merit-based decision, and that several of our key clients were dissatisfied and open to switching firms. He had also already reached out directly to 3 of our active clients. 2 of them had forwarded his messages to Nadine without responding to him. The third was Caldwell Manufacturing. Our newest client, Gerald Hartley, the CEO, had not yet responded to our inquiries about the outreach. That was a problem. My first fully independent project in the new role was a supply chain modernization strategy for Caldwell, scheduled for presentation the following morning. If Norbert had gotten to Gerald before I walked in the door, I was presenting into a room that had already been poisoned. I almost called Nadine to discuss postponing. I picked up the phone twice. Both times I put it back down. The next morning I arrived at Caldwell Manufacturing 55 minutes early. The building was a working industrial campus outside Columbus, the kind of place that still had the original company name in raised metal letters above the entrance. Gerald Hartley had built it from a 12-person machine shop starting 35 years ago. The place looked like something that had been earned. I was reviewing my materials in the reception area when the front desk assistant came over and told me Gerald wanted to speak with me privately before the presentation. That was not on the schedule. She walked me to a small conference room off the main hallway. Gerald was already there alone. 63 years old, silver hair, the kind of eyes that have spent decades reading people across a negotiating table. He gestured to the chair across from him. I got a call from a man named Norbert Cassidy 3 days ago, he said. No preamble. What did he tell you? I asked. Gerald laid it out plainly. Hargrove was in disarray. My promotion was damage control after an internal failure. My strategies lacked the depth that clients actually needed. Westward could offer the same service with better stability at a lower initial cost. He watched me the whole time he was talking. When he finished, I didn't deflect. I didn't soften it. I said, before I show you anything in that presentation, I want to tell you exactly what happened at Hargrove over the past 8 months, all of it. And then you can decide whether you want to proceed. Gerald leaned back slightly. Go ahead. So I told him. The altered documents, the scapegoat email, the 8 months of parallel files, the emergency meeting, the lawsuit that lasted 4 days before Norbert's own attorney told him to drop it. I told him about Norbert landing at Westward and immediately starting to work the phones on our client list. I told him I knew he had been contacted, and I was not going to pretend otherwise. When I finished, Gerald was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, you know what I haven't had in about 15 years of working with consultants. I waited. Someone who walked in and told me the truth before I asked for it. He stood up and extended his hand. Let's go do the presentation. I've asked my full executive team to join. The next 2 hours were the best client meeting I had run in years. My strategy for Caldwell centered on worker retention as the core driver of supply chain efficiency, which was not the conventional approach. Most supply chain consultants lead with automation and cost reduction. I led with the argument that their highest performing floor supervisors carried institutional knowledge worth more than any software system they could install, and that losing those people to competitors would cost more over 5 years than any modernization gain. Gerald's team pushed back hard in the right places. Good questions, real engagement. By the end, they had not just approved the strategy, but expanded the scope to include full implementation support over 18 months. As I was packing up my materials, Gerald walked over. Norbert called me again this morning, he said. Wanted to know if I had come to my senses about Hargrove. I looked at him. I told him I had just doubled my engagement with your firm, Gerald said, and that if he called again, I would be filing a harassment complaint with Westward's managing partners. I drove back to Columbus with the signed contract on the passenger seat and the kind of quiet satisfaction that does not need to announce itself. That evening, Nadine called. Good news on 2 fronts. First, Caldwell Manufacturing. She had already seen the contract. Second, we got a call from Westward's managing partners this afternoon. Apparently a former assistant of Norbert's, a woman named Sandra Oakes, who now works in Westward's operations team, went to their leadership independently. She told them Norbert had asked her to help him pull contact information and internal notes on Hargrove clients. She refused. Then she handed Westward the same documentation we already had. I did not say anything for a moment. Westward rescinded his offer this afternoon, Nadine said, effective immediately. I thought about the 8 months, the altered documents, the client meetings where I sat quietly and watched my name absorb blame for decisions I had never made, the HR complaints that went straight to Glenn Cassidy's desk. The night I found that email at 9:40 in the office and downloaded a copy to my personal drive without knowing exactly when I would use it. There's more. Nadine said. Hargrove's legal team filed against Norbert this morning for violation of his separation agreement. The non-solicitation clause was explicit. He contacted 3 of our active clients within his first week at a competitor. What does that mean practically, I asked. It means he is going to be dealing with lawyers for a while, she said, and it means you don't have to do anything else. It's already done. The first month in the new role moved fast. The 2-reviewer process on client deliverables went into effect the first week. Every strategy document that left the building had to be signed off by a second senior consultant before it reached a client, no exceptions. A few people grumbled about the extra step slowing things down. I told them the extra step existed because one person having unchecked control over a document is how an 8-month sabotage operation runs without anyone catching it. The grumbling stopped. Alvin Greer lasted 3 weeks before he resigned. He sent a formal letter citing strategic misalignment with the division's new direction. 2 other analysts who had been closely aligned with Norbert followed him out within the same month. I did not try to talk any of them out of it. When someone's entire professional identity is built around the person who just got walked out by security, staying rarely works for either side. What surprised me was what came after they left. 3 junior strategists who had been almost invisible under Norbert's structure started producing work I had not seen from them before. One of them, a woman named Patrice Welling, who had been at Hargrove for 2 years without a single client lead to her name, submitted an unsolicited analysis of a client's competitor landscape that was sharper than anything the senior team had produced in months. I put her name on the client presentation and told her directly in front of the team that it was her work. That was the other thing I changed. Credit went to the person who did the work. Every time, in every room. With no exceptions, it sounds basic. In practice, it changed the entire atmosphere of how the team operated within about 6 weeks. Floyd became my informal deputy, not because I handed him the title, but because he was the person people went to when they needed to understand how something worked or what I was likely to think about a decision. That kind of trust does not get assigned. It accumulates over time, and I had watched him earn it for 8 months before I was in any position to recognize it officially. The team grew from 8 to 14 over the following 6 months. We had a waiting list of strategists who wanted to transfer in from other divisions. That had not happened under Norbert's structure in the 3 years he ran the division. Earl mentioned it in a board meeting, and I heard about it secondhand from Nadine, which is how I preferred to get that kind of information. Northbridge Capital came back. Loretta Finch scheduled the follow-up meeting she had requested the morning after the emergency executive session. This time it was just her team and me, no other Hargrove representatives in the room. We spent 3 hours going through the original Southeast Asian expansion strategy, the real one, the version Norbert had never let reach a client. At the end of the meeting, Loretta slid a revised contract across the table. Northbridge was increasing their engagement with Hargrove by 65%. The contract specified that Roy Dunbar would personally oversee the account. We always suspected the work was stronger than what we were seeing, she said. We just could not figure out why the execution kept missing. Now we know. 6 months after that morning in Conference Room A, Hargrove's strategy division posted its best quarter in company history. A regional business journal ran a short profile on the turnaround and mentioned the division's approach to collaborative credit and transparent documentation as the structural reason for the performance shift. They did not know the full story behind why those processes existed. That was fine by me. The morning the article ran, I got a short email from Loretta Finch. Saw the piece. Not surprised. You were always this good. We just were not seeing the real version of it. I saved that email not as evidence this time. Some things you keep because they are true. If you have spent years watching someone put their name on your work and your name on their failures, you already know the particular kind of exhaustion that comes with it. Not just the anger, the self-doubt, the slow erosion of trusting your own judgment because the version of your work that reaches the world keeps underperforming. That part is designed. It is not an accident. What I know after 29 years is this. The work does not lie, documentation does not lie, and people who build their position on other people's output always leave a trail because the gap between what they claim to produce and what they actually produce keeps widening until someone with the right access and enough patience can measure it exactly. You do not need a confrontation. You do not need to win an argument in a meeting. You need a complete record and the discipline to wait until one well-placed move can end it cleanly. If any part of this story sounds familiar, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment below and tell me what you dealt with and how you handled it. And if this is the kind of story that resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe. There are more where this came from. Keep your documentation current. Keep your originals and never give someone the only copy of your best work.